tecnologia conecta pessoas e transforma vidas. CropLife Brazil.
Thank you very much. Very nice to see this video from CropLife. Welcome everyone to the second edition of Warm Up GAF, Global Agribusiness Forum, one of the most relevant meetings of agribusiness in the world. We are organizing these warm-ups in anticipation of the next Global Agribusiness Forum, which is going to happen July 25, 26, 2022, next year. And the objective is to promote business discussions, trying to define an agenda for the greatest challenges of agribusiness on a world perspective, and trying to offer a high-level content to our public through these events, which are free online events to our base, which is of global reach. The theme of this second warm-up that we are having today is Challenges of Food Safety, Tailor Indicators to Fit Country Contexts. My name is Plínio Nastari. I am the founder and CEO of Datagro. And just for you to remember, GAF is an event which happens every 2 years. It is started in 2012. We had a brief interruption due to the COVID pandemic, and we are going to resume the meeting next year. And the objectives of these warm-ups are to anticipate some of the discussions that we are going to have during the meeting, which is going to be presential and digital. The Global Agribusiness Forum is a gathering of the greatest entities representing agribusiness in Brazil and the world. And it is a partnership of the Brazilian Farmers Union, Sociedade Rural Brasileira, along with Abramilho, the Brazilian Association of Corn Producers, MAISAL, the International Maize Alliance, ABCZ, which is the Brazilian Association of Zebu Cattle Raisers, Abrafrutas, the Brazilian Association of Producers and Exporters of Fruits and Derivatives, the National Sucro Energetic Forum, which includes all producers of sugar and alcohol in Brazil, and UNEM, the Union of Corn Ethanol Producers, and also ABPA, the Brazilian Association of Animal Protein. Of course, Datagro is a member of GAF, and we are very honored to have all these associations with us. I would like to thank formally the sponsorship of CropLife in the master sponsorship, and also the sponsorship of Bradesco and DEAG, and the support of IARA, as well as the cooperation of Kerry and Cochupé, which are giving us collaboration to organize this warm-up and also the 2022 edition of GAF. Just a brief remark on the theme which we are going to be addressing today. It's a very hot and important issue. As the ESG agenda gets more and more importance, also concerns about the quality of food which reaches the table of consumers worldwide is an issue of increasing concern. Of course, the other side of the coin is that sometimes we see policymakers being very sensitive or more sensitive than they should to the outcries of NGOs and outcries of the public, which are not necessarily based on science. So the need to discuss regulations which are based on science is paramount. And as also another source of concern is the fact that food safety can be a tool for distortion in trade if standards are set which become too stringent, that eventually impair free trade to happen on a fair condition. So I'm sure that our expert moderator and panelists will be addressing all these issues. We are very glad to have a stellar grade panel and moderator here today. I would like to present the panel at this moment. First, to moderate the panel, we have Deputy Secretary for Trade and International Affairs of the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Food Supply in Brazil. It's Councillor Flávio Capestrin Bettarello. He's a diplomat, and I'm glad to inform also that he's in the final stage in the diplomatic career, and he is presenting a dissertation which is exactly about the issue of food safety. So we are very glad to have you here. Thank you very much, Secretary Bettarello, to be with us. As speakers, we have three excellent, very knowledgeable speakers. First, Professor Romano Marabelli. Professor Marabelli is Special Advisor to the Director General of the World Organization for Animal Health. Professor Marabelli, yes, thank you very much. He's participating with us here from Paris. So thank you very much, Professor Marabelli. We also have Dr. Hugo Gutierrez. Dr. Gutierrez is calling from Chicago. Thank you very much, Dr. Gutierrez. He's the Global Chief Quality and Food Safety Officer at CARI. So thank you very much, Dr. Gutierrez. We know it's early in the morning in Chicago. It must be cold. Thank you very much. And also, we are very glad and honored to have Dr. Christian Lobauer, who is president of CropLife. He's calling from São Paulo. So without further ado, thank you very much. I would like to pass the word then to the moderator, Secretary Bettarello. The floor is yours. Thank you very much. I'm sure that we are going to have a great discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nastari. Good morning, all. Good morning, my fellow panelists, and to our audience. It's a pleasure to be here with you, calling in from Brasilia. And I think Plinio already touched on very important cornerstones of our discussions. Because when we talk about food safety, initially, obviously, we think it's a very technical aspect. And in fact, it should be, right? It should be driven by science, by sound science, by the experts and by the scientists. But we know due to public outcry, due to further interests, and even to protectionist pressures, there is lots of political inputs into the whole process of food safety. We see with COVID-19 the uprise of precautionism, where instead of regulating risk properly, you actually have a rational push to try to avoid risks at all costs. And in this sense, sometimes you cannot regulate at the best. You regulate for your public, you regulate for your constituencies. And sometimes when you proliferate these regulations too much, you end up on a regulatory populism, right? And this is a very challenging fact for our current discussions, because we see that some countries want to regulate, to others to modularize discussions that are not properly debated in international society. And in this sense, I think this panel is very timely when we need to bring in the national context and obviously how can we assure proper production, proper supply, on par and in tandem with the proper controls to reassure food safety for our consumers. So I won't extend me too much. I'll give the floor to the experts, and obviously I will also comment on their remarks, and afterwards I will bring some questions from the audience. So I'd like first to pass the floor to Professor Romano Marabelli from the World Organization for Animal Health. He's a special advisor to the Director General, and definitely he can bring to us the perspective of this standard setting body based in Paris, who is the ones that properly regulates animal health. Dr. Marabelli, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have some slides. If we can start with the first one. Okay, thank you, Monique. So good morning, and thank you very much for the invitation. Is a big pleasure and is an honor for me. I am very glad to present some elements of reflection in your forum. OIE, the World Animal Health Organization, is strongly involved to support healthy and safe production for the well-being of consumer and for development of producer. We are living in a very challenging period between the One Health approach and increase the demand of food, especially animal protein. It's well known that in the countries in which the economy is growing, the consumer consider food the first target for their life standard. Next, please. By this point of view, animal production will be considered an important social status for the new developing countries, and we expect a double request of animal protein by 2050. Next. At the same time, we live in a global market, and the G20 summit, with the active participation of Brazil and also OIE, had strongly considered the urgent develop sustainable production and guarantees animal welfare. Brazil, as you know, is one of the most important producers in the world and is used to export animal and animal products escorted with health certificate that ensure about the high standard of Brazilian production. Next one. Food will be most probably in the middle and international transition in relation of food security, enough quantity, and food safety, health quality. Animal workforce, sustainability, antibiotics resistance, coexistence between domestic animals and wildlife can have a huge impact to maintain open and permanent trade flows. Conflicts for food will probably take over the some that we live that last 30 years about them. OIE want to be a point of reference to ensure high-level standard for animal and animal production. Next, please. We are in the center of an important part of economical progress. OIE wished to contribute to an international dialogue useful for improvement the public health and peaceful development of the world trade. To attain these targets, OIE developed international standards and a quick collection of the health status of the 182 member countries. Confidence and transparency are the main competitives that you well known in the international affair. Next one. About the collect. Next, please. About the collect of health information, OIE have developed an advanced new system, WISE Plus, that make possible to know in a real time the countries and the region concerned by animal health problems. Next one. About standard, OAI is supported by 4 scientific committees representing the technical contribution of all continents, and every year during the general section, the member countries delegate vote for the compliance of the international rules. Next. Next. Next one. You see here our international connection, especially we are the point of reference for the World Trade Organization in case of conflict. Next one. Next. You see here some topics covered by the OAI standard: risk analysis, condition for trades, animal welfare, antibiotic resistance, diagnostics test standard, models of export certificate, guidelines for human killing and animal, compartment and zone, vaccine production standard. And about that, we met a Brazilian delegation last week here in Paris. Guidelines for carcass disposal, disease surveillance, and criteria for disease-free status. Next one. An important new activities of OAI is dedicated to improve observatory, to monitoring the effective application of the standard by the member country. This new instrument don't want to become a world police, but wish to accompany with moral suasion a rapprochement of the national legislation with international rules. Next one. Finally, the confidence in the international market is especially based on the credibility of the partners. OAI improved the level of the veterinary service through a program named PVS to prepare an upgrade of the Veterinary National Organization. Next one. In this way, a big challenge for the next future will be to improve the collaboration between public and private sector. Next. It's important to offer to the consumer safe but also acceptable food by environmental, welfare, and ethical point of view. Next one. Especially in the West Country, it's important to maintain the confidence about animal system production, participating with high standard and new technology to reduce the impact of the livestock in terms of use of antibiotics and sustainable emission. We know that it is possible, and we don't want to lose consumer for that. Next. So, OAI support the transparent collaboration by the official authorities of member country through a rapid information of the health status and the application of national rules compatible with international standards. We must prevent the drift towards private standards. The illusion of the large distribution to intercept the need of the consumer can involve a great anarchy. It is important to add value to the food products promoting some specific quality, but it is not negotiable the common interest of public and private to maintain a solid foundation to improve the international market. The private standard could be a jungle. In the beginning, some wanting to be stronger, but finally everybody needs to be protected. OIE hope that public standard could be supported and applied. For that reason, we are implementing the observatory to verify the improvement of the rules and assist our member countries. OIE will continue to exchange with Brazilian authorities a very helpful collaboration and is open-minded to all countries that can improve a positive relation in the region and the worldwide. Next one. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Professor Marabelli, for your presentation. I think it's very important for us to give the landscape of the international reference bodies, the three sisters, as you said, who are very important to the efforts of urbanization. Unfortunately, they are not binding, right? They are referenced on the SPS agreement, but their determinations are not mandatory. And this creates the spaghetti ball of regulations around the world, which makes our teams much more complex. And for such a complex team, we need to have a multi-stakeholder panel. And this is what we have here today. We have representatives from industry and from the biotechnology sector. And who better to talk about biotechnology and its interface with food safety than the president of CropLife, Dr. Christian Lobauer. So I'll give him the floor so he can bring to us his insights on this very important matter. Dr. Lobauer, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bettarello. First of all, let me compliment all this team of authorities on this debate of challenges challenges of safety food, and Mr. Marabelli, Mr. Gutierrez, Mr. Duncan, and also compliments to Mr. Nastari, our host. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm representing here, as you said, the CropLife Brazil. CropLife Brazil is an association. CropLife Brazil is the only one in the world who gather the industry of chemicals for crop protection, bioprotection products, and biotech companies. It is a very complex exercise to put all technologies together in the same association. We founded it in 2019 with 12 companies. Now we have 50 companies, most of them worldwide known, like Bayer, BASF, Corteva, Ihara, Sumitomo, Syngenta, and so on. Many Brazilian companies as well, especially in bioprotection products, and most of the biotech companies that people know around the world. So to talk about food safety is a main topic for our industry. And as we know, the challenges for food safety are even more debated nowadays in the world. And it's important to say that safe food for all of us is a human right. It's a primary human right. And access to sufficient and safe and wholesome food for all people still remains a big challenge. Brazil has a main role to play on this debate as a big producer of food and exporters of food. And the first topic I think it's important to put in this debate is that there are differences among countries that have to be understood when this issue is debated around the world. When we talk about Brazil, we should never forget that this country has developed tropical agriculture, and all the techniques and the technologies that are used here in agriculture should be understood from a tropical perspective. Many techniques like no-till or 2 crops per season, or the integration of crop, livestock, and forest is also a reality in our systems of agriculture and food production. I put this commentary to start because when we observe the debate on food safety around the world, we see somehow some markets trying to impose an agenda that does not fit to the Brazilian agriculture. And so to have a good conversation on food safety and food security, we have to understand the differences among countries, especially countries like Brazil that has a tropical perspective on agriculture. Despite of this specific issue, I think the most important thing from our perspective is, when we talk about food safety, is to focus on the how safe is the food when we have to tackle diseases and pests and everything in a tropical agriculture. And this is the challenge we have in countries like Brazil and our industry faces. Food safety and pesticides go close together. There is no industry that is more that takes more care and is more worried, is more dedicated to avoid the threat to human health than our industry. The industry takes this issue of food safety extremely seriously and tests its products in very rigorous and prolonged manner all over the world and in Brazil. We follow international standards, global standards that come from the United Nations, that come from the FAO, from the World Health Organization. We are very much focused on the Codex Alimentarius. From Brazil, we avoid this idea of a new Codex Planetarius that is part of the Green Deal debate in Europe nowadays. We don't believe this is a good way to go ahead on these debates. And we have, most important thing, a very rigorous system of to approve new products through our regulatory system in Brazil. Every day you find somebody in Brazil and other places in the world trying to say that Brazilian food is not safe. But I can assure you, this team and everybody who's attending this meeting and all over the world, people who talk about Brazilian food, that Brazilian food is absolutely secure and safe. Specifically, Brazilian food is absolutely safe. We have in this country a very rigorous system of approval of new products that have been used in agriculture. It goes for agrochemicals and bioproducts as well. We have another system, very rigorous and worldwide known and respected, to approve new modalities for biotech products. And it has to be underlined because every day we find somebody in Brazil and all over the world trying to say that Brazilian food that is available for Brazilians and Brazilian food who is exported for more than 160 years, 160 countries, is not safe. We have a system of approval based on 3 institutions: the National Surveillance institution, that is Anvisa, that takes care of the risk that these products might have to human health. We have another institution that makes the analysis for environment, that is IBAMA, and then the other one that is the Ministry of Agriculture, that takes care of the efficiency of the product, the agronomic characteristics of these products, the agronomic effectiveness of these products to be used in agriculture. It's very important to describe that this not only the products that are on the field, they have permanent reevaluation of these products every 5 years, and we have 2 studies that are made, official studies of follow-up, that are under the responsibility of the Ministry of Agriculture and the National Surveillance Agency, that takes care of the quality and the safety of the Brazilian food. Just to give you an example, we have the National Plan for Control of Residues and Contaminants in Products of Vegetal Origin, the so-called PNCRC, that follows the same methodologies that European institutions use to control samples from rural properties. And the results of the last PNCRC have been absolutely coincident and convergent to the European ones. And we have another program that is a program for analysis of pesticide residues in food, coordinated this time for Anvisa, by Anvisa, that analyzes fresh food samples collected at sale points. Both studies have been presented every 2 years, and the results have been very high level of freshness and quality for the Brazilian food. We have faced in Brazil other new challenges to deal with traceability at the moment. The new border of this debate to guarantee transparency and even more transparency to the consumers is the traceability processes. Even more distributors, companies, and consumers have been paying attention on traceability, and I believe in some years we're going to be able to have traceability for everything that we consume in this country, and then we can somehow conclude with a complete sustainable process of food producing and guarantee of food safety in this country. I think it's very important to use this opportunity in this high-level debate to stress that the Brazilian food is being continually evaluated and assessed by official institutions to guarantee quality and safety for the Brazilian food. And our industry is very much connected and committed to these goals, because, as we know, Brazil is among the most important food producers in the world. It's not only on crops, but on fruits and also in animal protein. That is a result of this high level of production in crops. And so in all spheres, our country has invested a lot in the food safety debate. To conclude this presentation, we are very much aware of these agendas that are not exactly focused on the safety of food, like Plinio introduced in our conversation. Trade interests sometimes are mixed with the debate of safety food, and we are convinced that we have to continue our efforts as an industry, as an association, to guarantee the high level of quality and security on the food, and on the other hand, to guarantee this independence, this respect for different production characteristics that countries like Brazil have because of its tropical characteristics and its unique condition of producing food. I think this brings us a lot of interesting topics to debate. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Bettarelli and other colleagues, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lobauer. Thank you for your presentation. I totally agree that there are no one-size-fits-all solution for our agri-food technologies, right? Each country needs to choose the best toolkit that is available to increase productivity. And interesting enough, sometimes when you get to the sustainability debate, people do not discuss how these technologies actually increase productivity and prevent you from opening new crop areas. So by preventing the use of these technologies, resorting not on science, but on impressions or on this disinformation campaign that Dr. Lobauer very well pointed out, actually are doing a disfavor for the environment, a disfavor for food security, and a disfavor for the sustainability of our planet. So science shall always be our benchmark for sure. And if we have sound control systems, as Dr. Lobauer exposed using Brazil as an example, we shouldn't prevent our producers from having the best toolkit available to them to produce more using less natural resources. But obviously, we cannot be lax with our regulations to really assure our consumers that we have the proper controls in place. And in order to better explain how global industry is tackling these challenges of providing the best possible products, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Gutierrez, who is the Global Chief Quality and Food Safety Officer at CARI. So Dr. Gutierrez, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. I have to say I spent a lot of time in Brazil, either through acquisitions or building plants and so on. So I have a lot of respect for Brazil, but most important is talent. At this time of the year, I would much prefer to be in Rio de Janeiro or Sao Paulo than in cold Chicago. So the best I can do now is to have a nice cup of coffee or Brazilian fantastic coffee, which is my favorite for sure. So what I like to do in the next 20 minutes or so is really to share some comments and then show you some examples on how we in the industry are addressing some of the things that we talk. My wish or my objective is to leave you with something very practical that people can refer to. So I think that'll be my goal. So the first thing I'd like to invite everybody in the audience is just to consider the responsibility that we have, those of us that work in food, okay? So we need to feed around a little less than 8 billion people around the world. That is huge, right? And not just to feed this amount of people, but also to do it safe. And that's where food safety plays such an important role. Every single year, there's a big percentage of food that goes to waste. Yet, there is people that go to bed hungry. So the importance of this job becomes very critical to do this well. And, you know, I don't need to tell the audience about sustainability, right? Weather and impacts and so on. So we need to do it in a sustainable way. So we need to feed all this amount of people around the globe. We need to do it in a very safe way, and we need to do it sustainable. CARI, the company that I work for, the best way to describe this company is that they sell food globally. We have around 150 manufacturing plants across 30 countries. Of course, Brazil, where we have several manufacturing plants. And it's a company that basically what they do is innovation. And innovation in terms of new ways of food that is more sustainable and it's more natural and it's more organic. So that's what we do. So again, that gives us a nice position to get close to these issues. And again, my intent is to give you something very practical. And I'm going to show you some examples on how we do some of this work. The second concept I'd like to share with the audience is just reflect around today's supply chain. So I've been doing this work for 30 years or so. And in the last 5 years, my job has changed fundamentally. Maybe when I started, I was more of a science person, looking at food and technologies on food and techniques around quality assurance and so on. And little by little, my job has moved to be more of what I would call more of a business person, trying to influence people around me to follow the right behaviors, to follow the right things around food safety. So it's a slightly different job, and I think we all need to be conscious around that. The environment changes. We need to change as professionals as well. So in any given time, you go to the supermarket, you buy, call it any type of food, and, you don't care if the ingredients coming from China or it was manufactured in Europe and then it was shipped to Brazil or to the US. It really doesn't matter. But that's what we need to manage, that all of that happen in such an excellent way that is seamless for the consumer. That's our challenge, and that's clearly part of my challenge. The other thing I'll say is that the relationship of the consumer, global consumer with food has changed. So think about the consumer today and compare that consumer to, I'll say, 5 years ago again. Today's consumer is expecting food safety. It's not saying, hey, I wonder if this product is safe, right? It will be an obvious step. So we need to make it obvious. That's basically the first thing. Again, I already mentioned that, yes, that product can be manufactured with many ingredients across the world. So we all know that. So everything needs to get in the right way, manufactured in the right way, and so on. But more important, this consumer is evolving. So a lot of the consumer is not just buying a product, it's saying, okay, what is that company is doing for the environment? What is that company footprint is on weather? Is this company support the development in different countries? So again, that consumer is asking, I want to know, show me, because I want to make a decision on the food that I'm buying. And a lot of their belief are going to be supporting that decision of buying or not buying. So we all need to evolve on that. So they have the right to choose, and they're asking for transparency. Again, going back to my job, I really strongly believe that my job has changed just to be an internal professional, right, in my company and do things like this one. I have the responsibility to share knowledge because it just happened that I'm in a very big global company. That doesn't mean I'm smarter than everybody else. It just means that I have access to information that not everybody has. So I can see what's going on in China. I can see what's going on in France. I can see what's going on in Paris. I can see good practices. And all of that give us a great platform to help, to share, improve our processes. But I have the responsibility to help others to improve their processes. So I think that's a key responsibility that each one of us have to embrace. Not just this is my job today, this is what I do, I just happen to be in Brazil or I happen to be in Chicago. Is what can I do to make sure that we can deliver that food in a sustainable and safe way across. By the way, if we have around 10,000 suppliers, right? So if one of the suppliers fails, I would probably fail. So again, it's not enough for what I do in my industry and in my country. I gotta make sure that everybody else is doing the right thing as well. I also like to share a concept, and I leave for everybody to consider and react to this. But I strongly believe food safety is good business. Those companies that invest on food safety, those companies that help the world on food safety, are the ones that will be growing the most. I really believe so. The same with sustainability, and the same giving the consumer what they want, the innovation piece. Food safety means sustainability. We cannot just be safe. We need to make sure that we do the food, that we manufacture the food in the right way, helping with water, helping with CO2, helping with landfills, helping with everything that needs to be done to protect our environment. So our responsibility is bigger than before. Now, I probably going to zoom in. So if you take food safety, it's huge, right? I'm going to pick one topic so I can give you some examples. And this is a very important topic. And that's how I strongly believe my job is been evolving. And this is about culture. And this is around behaviors. When you see problems in the marketplace, you pick, go to internet and say, what's the last 10 recalls worldwide? You will probably agree with me that it's not because we didn't have a procedure. It's not because we didn't have a regulation. Somebody chose to do something that was not aligned to that. There was a behavior that underpinned that problem. So if we don't work on people's behavior, and if we don't work on engaging everybody in the supply chain on food safety, I'll tell you, we will probably fail, okay? So what we're doing today in this audience is very critical, it's very important, and I'm very passionate about it. So how do you impact culture? That's probably one of the questions. So I'm gonna tell you the 6 ways that I believe we impact culture and what we need to follow to have a meaningful impact on the behaviors and the culture for everybody. I don't care if it's a CEO or if it's a financial lead or it's a marketing person or if it's somebody like me that leads food safety. And we all need to play in that team of getting the food safe. If somebody take a bad financial decision or if somebody develop the wrong product, we could have an issue, right? So the first thing, so here's the 6 points that I believe are very important. The first one is really around expectations. So every organization, every company, every supply chain has to make sure that every single person interacting with that organization knows the expectation of the company about food safety. And we need to be very clear. Food safety goes first. Cost, service are very important, but they cannot be the decision taking, okay? Food safety goes first. So that's the first thing, expectations. And the expectations are set from the top, not from, middle or bottom of the, it gotta be from the top. So that's the first thing. The second thing, you gotta educate people. So what we're doing here is very important. We gotta train people. We need to give them the tools so they can do food safety right. So teaching and educating has evolved. You cannot just get stuck with the traditional PowerPoint presentation. You gotta find ways to get to people's heart, make it fun for people to enjoy it and embrace why we're doing this food safety. I'm gonna show you some examples next. Communication. So you gotta tell people every time people go to a manufacturing plant or they're willing to sell product or they're willing to develop product, they need to get exposed and remind why this is so important in every single day. You gotta have goals and accountability as number 4. What are our goals? So again, in any given organization, what are you committed? Regardless of your job, what are you committing to ensure that food safety will be at the top? And then you need to measure. How do you measure that every single month you're doing better? This is continuous improvement. And at the end, you got to reward and recognize people. You got to catch people doing great things and celebrate those great things in the industry. So I'm going to show you 2 examples. And I brought some videos so you guys can see it. And as I do that, I would love to you to think about the techniques. There's neuro-linguistics in there, so how adults will think, there's gamification, how you make it fun for people so they can actually engage. I'll tell you, I've been in some of the trainings where I don't remember anything, okay? I went there, 30 minutes of somebody talking to me, I probably took 1 minute. So that's waste, right? So what are the techniques that we need to leverage to make sure people understand it, they engage, and with that information, they do something different. So let me share the very first video which we call Golden Guardians. And Marcela, if you don't mind projecting that video for the audience, it's just 2 or 3 minutes, but it will help me to bring the point. Go ahead, Marcela.
Brenda, an unassuming operative, has the power of intellects. When she uses intellects to properly document and escalate any potential issues, she becomes a foreign material fighter. On the other side of the factory, Max, a humble technician, is inspecting incoming material to make sure there is no foreign material. The extra time and care he puts in makes him one of the good guys. Han, a reliable filler operator, ensures all utensils and necessary items have a specific place when not in use. His attention to detail earns him his cape. Mechanic Talia transforms into a foreign material fighter when, after completing a repair, she verifies that no loose tools or parts are left behind. No blown gaskets are going to sneak past her. Because chaos leads to mistakes, and mistakes can allow foreign material into the food stream, Joe maintains good work organization on product and packaging lines. This earns him a spot in our foreign material fighter lineup. Here comes Pablo. He becomes a foreign material fighter when he conducts timely inspections according to plant procedures on metal detectors, X-ray equipment, integrity of magnets, sifters, and filters. As a dedicated blender operator, Teresa takes pride in her sharp knives. She uses a sharp blade to open product without leaving even a sliver, always following cutting protocol. She wields the power of a clean cut, which makes her a fearsome foreign material fighter. Foreign material may be a relentless foe, but our Cary Golden Guardians are ever watching, ever vigilant. Their mantra is this: safety first, quality always. Together, we can save the world from foreign material.
So again, this is just a video around one topic, right? This is an example. This happened to be foreign material. How important that is for Brazil, right? We do a lot of agriculture products in Brazil, and foreign material contamination and foreign is in every corner, right? So a lot of those things, yes, there is technology, there's X-rays, there is metal detectors, magnet, all of what you want, but you do rely at the end of the day on people. And if people don't take every single minute the responsibility and the hat around food safety, we will have missed. So, when I talk to the board of directors, it's always interesting that, it's tough because they had to rely on that person in the third shift in India, Brazil, US, doesn't matter, to take the right choice every single day in front of that product so we can do food safety right. So we cannot just talk technical stuff. We gotta talk people things. So in the video, and again later we can talk a little bit more, you can see there's like a drawing in front of you that in your mind people get pulled into the story and they feel they're part of the story. We're making superheroes the people. It's not about the vice president or something. No, it's people doing the product. Those are the superheroes. And through the video you can see the clear information and the risk that we do have, and all of those are real stuff. We had issues in every single of those areas in the last years, and now we have correct them. But we need to remind people that those are real challenges, and if they don't act as superheroes, then we're gonna have issues for sure. Now, that video is designed for people in the plant. Here's the question: how do you engage leadership across the supply chain? People that don't have to have the day-to-day on the plants, on the food safety, it's not, they're probably more worried about selling and so on. How do you engage that audience that is so important? Because you like it or not, everybody takes decisions on food safety in any given moment. So if you don't mind just sharing the last video, and that's how we're going to end my session. Marcela, do you mind projecting the second video, please?
How do you get people excited about food safety? How can employees contribute to a healthy food safety culture regardless of their job title? Cary Group knows that if you want to impact the people side of food safety, you have to engage both the hearts and minds of employees. This is why Sage Media was hired to build a customized training program that would accommodate Carrie's unique culture, but also raise the bar for how food safety training is done. This is how we did it. Our inspiration came from a passage in the FDA's blueprint for a new era of smarter food safety. Quote, "We will not make dramatic improvements in reducing the burden of foodborne disease without doing more to influence and change human behavior, addressing how employees think about food safety and how they demonstrate a commitment to this goal in how they do their job." End quote. In order to change behavior, we knew we had to capture the learner's attention and speak to their emotions. To do that, we created an interactive, narrative training film with a compelling plot.
Did you get my care package?
The story follows a woman who loses her daughter to a food-related illness. One day, she gets a call from someone claiming to know the people responsible for her daughter's death, and they are trying desperately to cover it up.
We have a problem.
Interviewing Carrie stakeholders provided a global view for a storyline that would be integral to the curriculum. Although the story was entirely fictional, Sage Media referenced real-world food safety examples that touched on multiple departments. That way, employees could see how interdependent food manufacturing is. Research and development, vendor relations, mergers and acquisitions, finance, etc. all play a role. There wasn't a single culprit or villain because the overarching message was that we are all responsible for food safety. Finally, the curriculum was built on a foundation of research and motivation and adult learning theories. Employees demonstrate their commitment to food safety through self-defined SMART goals. Having KPIs specific to their unique job function increases ownership and accountability. Learners define what success looks like for them, which assigns personal meaning to Carrie's commitment to safety first, quality always. In a world driven by regulations and compliance, we wanted to go further to reignite the passion employees have to enable Carrie to provide over 2 billion people with sustainable nutrition solutions by 2030.
But basically what you're going to see here are different techniques to engage leaders. So we had virtual reality in the video, and that's kind of a game. So we bring the manufacturing plant to the executives so they can see what's going on. In the video, it's really storytelling. It's a story about an issue that happened in the marketplace, nothing to do with Carrie. So it's external to that. So people can play with that. And then we can do a lot of exercises about how do we make sure that those type of situations never happen. So there's virtual reality as well, where people can actually click and look pictures and look at the plans and play videos. So as you are part of that education and training, you become part of the story. You become committed. And we close that storytelling. We close that video and exercise with some action plans. So we invite people to say what are the 1 or 2 things that you can do and that you can actually commit to ensure food safety in this company and in this supply chain. So it's very well done. It's actually done in Los Angeles with the actors. And it's very interesting because those videos are done with people that have expertise on making movies like Netflix and so on. But in the other hand, they also have expertise around how people, adults think, how you modify behaviors. So you build those 2 techniques into an exercise, and then that's how you engage the leaders across the company or across the organizations. So at some point, we'll share some details. The example that we brought, just 3 minutes, just to show a little bit, but that's the intent. So I'll leave you with that message is, what are we doing to engage every single people in the supply chain to enable food safety? What are we doing to impact cultures? And what are we doing to make sure that the behaviors across the supply chain, regardless of what country, are the right behavior for food safety and sustainability? So I end my presentation with that, and thank you everybody for the time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Guterres. Now we are going to have our Q&A sessions. I would like to invite all members of our audience to please send your questions to our distinguished panelists through the chat on the platform. And I'll start with a question by Monique Oberlander. I'll first ask this question to Professor Marabelli, but please, Christian and Hugo, feel free to also reply to it. So her question is if you can assume that Codex is the proper forum for the definition of world standards based on science, and we should consider that any standard that is exceeding Codex levels are trading distorting mechanisms. And I would like to add my own twist on these questions. We know that the three sisters are the reference bodies under the SPS agreement, but their definitions of their standards are not mandatory. And how could we tackle harmonization on the international level if we do not have an agreement on what would consist on an adequate level of protection, or even the methodologies that we should better use? Obviously, we have the recommendation to have risk assessment, but we see that lots of people and lots of countries apply the precautionary approach, just resort on the precautionary principle, which is in fact in the SPS agreement on Article 5, but it should be an extraordinary and temporary measure. But we've seen regulators actually using it as a parameter for doing their assessments. Instead of a proper risk analysis, they are doing kind of a hazard approach. So I'd like to give these two questions. How are the Codex MRLs and directives, if they are the proper standards, the CXLs, and if how could we better harmonize, and how should we tackle this kind of precautionist wave where the precautionary principle is being used and is being kind of used in a very broad way, much larger than it was originally foreseen on the original Uruguay round agreement. So let's start with Professor Marabelli, please.
Thank you very much, Secretary Bettarello, for these two questions, because, well, as you know, Codex decide or present standard for the production of food. We work on standard for animal production. So what we think is that, especially for antibiotics, we think that we want to prevent the contamination by antibiotics. So we try, Codex try to care, but we try to prevent. If I can make this example, in the sense that we think, as I tried to say in my short speech, that in this moment it's very important to have the right confidence with the consumer. And to have the right confidence for the consumer is important that the consumer consider, like Hugo explained, food safety the first point of reference, but even the way by which these products is produced become more and more important. So it's not only the products, but also the system of production. And in the international market, unfortunately, sometimes there are a misunderstanding between the guarantees that we can give at the end of the production to put in a market safe products, but even to give to the consumer the assurance that the production, the way of the production, the chain of the production will be done in the right way. And the problem of sustainability, the problem of welfare, and the problem of antibiotics is in the center of this discussion. So it's sure that Codex decide the level of food safety for the food that enter in the market. We try to help the producer to have a chain of production, a safe chain production. Unfortunately, it's true, and we discussed a few days ago, as I said, with the Brazilian authorities here in Paris, some problem linked to the application of the international rules, because the international rules are not compliance, are not obligatory to, and the international rules leave the country free to apply in the better way this evolution of the rules. But finally, we think that the country, the member country of the OIE, especially of the OIE, because in the three sisters, you know that our rules have a big impact of economics rules, of economics trade. So even if it's not a compliance, is not obligatory, but finally, when you exchange the health certificate, the main part of this certificate is based on our standard. It's for that reason that we built the observatory. The observatory, I repeat, don't want to be the world police, don't want to become the police of the world, but want to accompany different countries. And in my previous activities in Italy, I had a lot of contact. I am pleased to have worked a lot with Brazil. We share together how the confidence and the credibility in the international market become through the transparency and through the application of the international rules. It's true that when you apply international rules for the export, you have to be credible even in the application of the rules for import. So that is the game. That is what we try to do. But finally, the global market, in a certain way, help, because some country that in the past was out of the global market applied very strict rules that was not linked to the science, was not linked to the real level of the health security. And now this country when a country enter international market, they understand that import and export are very, very, very linked. And that it is important to understand that in what we need to do is to maintain a chain of information that give credibility to how the country can do for their own expert, for their own consumer, and even for the other consumer. And I came back and I finished my intervention on that to say, again, keep care about private standard. Private standard, it's okay to give to the consumer some add value for some quality, but I think that the country in the big organization and the member country like Brazil or European Union or USA have to defend the standard coming from public activities, so the state and the international organization. But really, this question is the challenge. We need to support this standard, and the worst way is to destroy this confidence in the application, in the misapplication of the standard between what we do in the export and what we ask in the import.
Thank you, Professor Barabelli. I think this double standard issue is at the core on how you can discriminate use technical issues to discriminate against imported products. When you have these double standards, you are not doing food safety, you are actually doing protections, right? So I think you touched on a very important issue. You also mentioned the issue of antimicrobial resistance, AMR, which is a very hot topic. I think we should have a panel just for AMR, maybe, because it's still, we've been discussing this for a long time, but there's lots of evidence that still needs to be gathered. It needs to be context specific. So I won't dig too much into antimicrobial resistance now, but I'm very glad that you brought this very hot topic up. And also you mentioned private standards, which is a question that I will save to ask Dr. Gutierrez later on. But first, I would like to pose the same question for Dr. Lobauer. How do you see the international reference standards? Are they the benchmark that should be followed by sound science? And how do you see this kind of banalization of the precautionary approach? And I will just kind of take a time on this question, because I think human beings are very used to risk on several different situations. We drive cars, we do sports, we wake up from the bed, and all of these are risky business, right? When you have the proper controls. And we always say a lion is a very, very dangerous animal, but nobody prevents from going to the zoo to watch him on a safe environment, because the risk is controlled, right? So he's dangerous, but he poses no risk. So why do you not have these perceptions when we come to some technologies, right? Obviously, they can be dangerous, but they are not risky at all. And just to give you some data, in 2004, there were about 100,000 no-intentional deaths caused by injury in the United States. Of these, maybe about 45,000 by car accidents, right? 15,000 by falls, 3.5 thousand by drones, and only 7 attributed to pesticides. And this was not pesticides that you actually ate from your food, was people that misapplied it, didn't follow the good agricultural practice. They probably drank a whole bottle of glyphosate and died from it. But then, why, if 40,000 people die from car accidents, why people keep driving, but they are all scared about maybe eating foods who use these technologies? So, Dr. Lobauer, can you please give us some insights on this precautionary approach, risk versus hazard, and international standards?
I'm not sure I have a simple answer for this question, but I should start saying that the Codex is the proper forum for the definition of world standards. First of all, it's an institution that come from the 60s. There's also space for improvements. There's also space for a better debate, new technologies, new techniques to put on the evaluations. Doesn't matter, but the Codex is the proper forum. I don't believe that we should go to other forums, as some people have been suggesting in the last years, specifically on this Green Deal Codex Planetarius idea that seems to me a very crazy thing. So we should keep this on the Codex Alimentarius, and to be very straight, very direct on the debate, we have here a conception debate, and it's very much centralized on Europe. Maybe we can put Japan in some topics. Japan is aligned with Europe, but we have a very much an European issue here. When we talk about US, Canada, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, South Africa, Australia, and so on, countries that are producing food for the world, they follow very much the risk assessment perception on this, on how to determine the rules, and it's going fine. But when it's about the European perception, then we have this application, the systematic application of the precautionary principle. This is a philosophical way to see the world and to see the society, to understand consumer behavior. We have to respect that, but we have to respect, as you said, based on sound science. If we start to talk about philosophy here, it's not going to work. If we start to talk about reduction on MRLs, or reduction on tolerance on MRLs based on we don't know exactly what, we're talking about parts per billion, and now some scientists come and say this parts per billion are dangerous based on what? It's like you're in a sphere of far away from science. I think there is a lot of ideology there. I think there is also a parallel agenda of trade interests, but I don't think the trade interest is the main topic here. I think the main topic is a corporativism, unfortunately, based on the interests of institutions that have billions of dollars that come from the good intention of taxpayers that feed these institutions, that live from this agenda. And if we say that simply that based on science, food is safe today in the world, based on the standards that we have already worked in the last 4 or 5 decades, then these institutions lose their meaning. This is the real discussion, in my opinion, that makes this thing so complicated today. CropLives around the world face the same debate inside the CropLives, CropLife America, CropLife Latin America, CropLife Europe, CropLife Japan. They have the debate inside the institute, the CropLife International. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. It's Europe and Japan with a speech that does not match with the other rest of the world. So I think this is the center of the debate.
Oh, I totally agree. I think we have a very Eurocentric approach, and this is sometimes biased. I think you touched on a very important point when you raised the issue of moral hazard, right? How institutions sometimes drift from their mandates that are given by their taxpayers or by whoever they should protect to pursue their own interests and to keep only self-feeding themselves and perpetuating their existence. And I think sometimes we have regulators regulating for themselves instead of regulating for proper food safety, right? Just to justify their ideologies or to justify their role in the world instead of actually trying to protect consumers. But on that kind of dark notes, let's move to some different issue. And I would like to pose the question to Hugo. Dr. Gutierrez, how do you see the interaction of private standards and national and international regulations? Which role should private standards play? And how can we have the assurances that private standards are being drafted based on science? Because at least in theory, national regulators and international regulators, they should follow some sort of methodologies or some sort of rules, right? Trade-based rules, WTO, but private agents are not necessarily binded by them. So how can we be assured that something is being rightly certified and it's not just some marketing purpose or somebody hijacking a very important issue of food safety to try to do a better marketing positioning of their product instead of obviously doing it for the sake of consumer protection?
Sure. So I think the first thing, and I think everybody here agrees, is that everything needs to be science-based. That's the first thing. So we have that approach. Now, we have the same issue internally because we manufacture our product across the world, right? So we are very interested in that our supply chains move diligently and science-based across our own manufacturing plants, right? Because we might be manufacturing an ingredient in one country, send it to another plant, manufacture the product, and then sell it to many different markets. So one approach that we have taken, and this is very common in our industry, is to, by the way, if you guys can mute, if you're not speaking, that'll be great. There's some feedback coming in. So a couple of things that we have done, and I think it's a very good approach, is we take the industry groups and help us to mediate across the different companies. So GFSI, I think, is a very good example. It's a fantastic example. So I don't know how many companies are part of GFSI. Certainly, they honor Codex. Codex is science-based. It's telling us the how. But, we all trust an industry approach to say, okay, together, what are the standards that we want to follow? I think we need to give the space to every company to say if they want to do more. And again, more doesn't mean putting roadblocks. More is every company could choose to be more proactive and more preventive, right? So I'll give you one example. We choose to build food safety from the design. So we have policies and procedures in place to ensure food safety from the development of the product. So we ask our developers to look at micro risk and so on from the design, so we don't have to fix it later on. So that's an example of things that some companies want to do beyond. Some other companies might do statistics, right? So we build some of those things into our own standards, as Kerry standard, as a continuous improvement journey. Always meeting regulations, that's the minimum. Using codex as a reference because it is well done, it's science-based, we gotta use that. But then aligning with the industry around, hey, what is a good practice about doing some of that requirements? What's the best way to do it? So I think, I always believe several minds might be better working together than just every company trying to say, here's how we're going to do it, right? So we use that. And the only things that we go beyond that are things that are specific for our companies. And again, I gave you an example of, we just decided to be very proactive and very preventive from the design. That's a choice that we make. It could be a little bit more expensive, but we want to do that from the beginning so we don't have any risk across the supply chain. That's an example of that.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez. I have a question here from Erica Esteves Ebner, and she is asking how food industry could work together to reduce food waste and to eradicate hunger at the same time. And she asks if there are technological innovations that could be used to operate a consistent program. And I think this actually poses the question, how should we better regulate to not prevent science from bringing us innovations, right? Because in order to tackle hunger of a growing population without completely draining our natural resources, we need to come up with new solutions. And new solutions are coming, right? We have biotechnology, we have gene editing, gene drive, lots of things happening very fast, but sometimes the pace of regulation is not the same as the pace of innovation. And how can we assure that food is safe, but still do it in a timely manner that does not prevent us from innovating? What is the sweet spot between protecting consumers, but also giving the tools for us to achieve higher levels of productivity? So maybe I will start with Christian, if you could give us insight that, how can we have this balance?
Yes, thank you, Flavio. First of all, I think you put the right way to debate this issue is exactly that. We have new technologies available. There's a lot of money invested on new technologies, especially in biotech. Some days ago, I heard a presentation, very interesting presentation, saying that the century, the 19th century was the mechanical science century, the 20th century was the chemical one, and the 21st century will be the biological, biotech century. And I agree completely. This is the new frontier of science. What the human being is doing with the study of biotech, and especially on plants, is amazing. That it means for the good that people will be able to produce much more food with quality in less using the land, in properties that are not so big. We can produce more and more food, and this is the good thing. This is straight related to sustainability. That is exactly what people intend to do to protect the biomas all over the country and all over the world. So this is science. This is the good deliver of this new frontier of science in biotech and in even in crop protection. But the challenge is exactly how to regulate these things. We have in Brazil and all over the world, but especially in Brazil, a huge gap on how to approve new molecules when it's about chemicals. It's not so bad when it's about to approve biological products, but and it's okay to approve new biotech technologies. Altogether, we have a challenge on giving the bureaucracy more efficiency. It's Brazil, but I would say that is for most of the countries. This is one challenge. The other one is it's so big as the first is is a communication challenge. How to make consumers and urban citizens to understand the benefits of all this technology. We have a lot of resistance, misunderstandings especially on biotech. People somehow criticize the industry to play the role of God, to intervene on what we should not put the human being should not intervene, and what are the limit of the ethics to do this kind of thing. This is a very interesting, very deep debate, but it should be better understood from the common consumer. And we have this challenge. We don't know exactly how to make ordinary people to understand how good and how big is the benefit of these new technologies that are coming to the good of the humanity. So let's live and see how we can manage that.
Thank you, Chris. No, I totally agree. I think one of our biggest challenges is communication, right? How can we better communicate with the average citizen, right? And show him that science is actually a driver for good and not something that tries to kill him, right? Otherwise, it would be just some sadists playing God. But on the other hand, obviously, we are the complete opposite, right? We are trying to come up with solutions that will make this planet thrive without depleting its resources and people having proper access to food. And Hugo, could you give the perspective from the food industry? The original question was, how could the food industry be involved on the efforts to eradicate hunger and prevent food loss and bring innovation to the table? You already touched on some of these points on your presentation, but maybe you could go deeper on which role can industry play, and the food industry specifically play, on bringing innovation, eradicating hunger, and preventing losses.
Yeah, I will say industry not only could, but should. Going back to my opening, I think it's our responsibility to do that for, planet, people, however you're going to call it. I think the food safety model is a good model because every single company, or most companies will say food safety is not a competitive advantage. Therefore, we can share that openly. And I think those forums, and again, I refer to GFSI as a good example. It's not the only example, but it's a good example where people share best practices, and we have experts and companies saying, hey, here's how I'm doing it. And this is the problems that I have, and this is the things that work well, and then share that, especially with the smaller companies. I think sustainability should be the same example. So these type of forums should get people together to share best practices. So Kerry has put a lot of goals around sustainability, and our approach is very interesting. So we commit to develop product with sustainability in mind. So every single product that is new probably use less water, less impact to the environment. So we got that cycle going on. The how is where the innovation goes, and there's some companies that invest a lot of money on that innovation. Kerry as an example. And I think we should commit to help and share some of our learnings. So I'll be the first to offer Kerry in any forum to say, you know what, here's some learnings, and this is how we are reducing our impact. Here's what we have learned, and help others to do the same. Will be more than happy. So I think it's a little bit of finding the forums, the industry forums, having some leads. And again, we're like in my case, I'll be happy to help to lead that and say, let's get some of us together, share best practices, and then share it with the industry. And companies that are smaller, we own to them to say, hey, here's our learnings as a bigger company with more resources and so on. Here's our experience. Go ahead and try it. So I think these forums should play an important role on that, helping us get together. bringing the openness in that forum, and then ask every company, like my company, say, okay, bring something that you can share and people can learn from to have a more sustainable world and supply chain.
Thank you so much, Hugo. Well, I think in 1 hour and a half, we covered so many different topics. Surely we could have a different panel for each one of them, right? One for AMR, one for new technologies, one for food waste. But obviously, we covered a lot of these issues that are intertwined with food safety. And I think, as Dr. Nastari said at the beginning, at first it should be seen as a simple thing. But when you start to unwrap it, right, and to pull the string of it, it unfolds into a very complex issue. And so I would like to make perhaps a last round of final remarks from our panelists, so you could give us the insights on any of these aspects that we should be stressed out. And then maybe I'll do some final comments to wrap up. So let's start with Professor Marabelli. Romano, please, if you could just provide us some final insights.
Thank you very much. Well, I agree with my colleague with the different approach that they showed today. And both of biotechnology, I think that we are in a new era. There are a better understanding of what does it means, and even the evolution of the new technology is better accepted. So now the problem is that we have to, on the science basis, on which I agree totally, we have to help the producer and the consumer to understand that the technology is the only way to save from one end the production and from other way the relation with the consumer, and to explain in the better way the sustainability, because like Hugo said, sustainability you can interpret sustainability in a many different things. But what Christian said, very important by my point of view, is to understand what is the world today. And the world today is not what we thought or someone think again that was 20 years ago. Now, for example, when Christian speak Europe, I think when he speak Europe, he speak European Union. But European Union is 27 countries. In our organization, we are 182 countries. You can understand how we have a different point of view. How, for example, the Central Asian country or some African country and the big Asian country, but even in South America, I travel a lot in South America, but now there is new country even in South America that are enter in the market. So what is important by our point of view is to give to everybody the possibility to enter in the better way in the production for safe production and for a good international market. You know that now by the compartmentalization, so we have this new approach that give the possibility, and Brazil and the Minister Bettarello know that it's possible to produce safe products out of the traditional chain of production. You can products pigs or chicken completely safe, even in the middle of the desert, if you wish. And there are some countries, for example, we are working a lot with the Gulf country. They have a lot of money. The money is not the problem in this moment. It's not a problem in this moment. The problem is how this money could be invested in the right way. In the Gulf country, in Saudi Arabia country, they are producing food with the new technology, with the energy coming from sun or coming from other possibility, and they produce food or milk in the center or nowhere. So I agree totally that the world is turned. I think that the center of the world is not what we thought 20 years ago.
Thank you, Professor Marabelli. Dr. Lobauer, please, if you'd like to give us your final insights.
I agree very much with Mr. Marabelli said. And before complimenting you and thanking you for participating on this debate, I want to say that the most tricky debate today, I think, is about what is science. We have been in many different spheres of society and different debates on different issues, and we go all over the world to the same point. We have been confronting perceptions what science is. When everything is science, nothing is science. So we have to go back to school and say, well, science is a sample, science is repetition, science is systematic comproval, science is this and that, this and that. This is science. Because everybody is defending its argumentation today, saying that it's based on sound science, but we know that there are sciences and sciences there. So that's why I insist that we could and we should preserve institutions like the Codex. We should preserve and be more conservative on what we have been using in the last years as the traditional science, as toxicological dossiers, for example, based on thousands of studies and systematic studies that can bring security and assure that people can, in the case of crop protection products, they can consume food without having any worry, any trouble. So this is, I think, what's the most challenging point today in many different issues, is that what is exactly science when we debate on many different issues. Thank you for the opportunity again. It's a pleasure to be with Hugo and Romano and you, Flavio. I hope we have other opportunities to meet. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. We will meet again many times. And last but not least, let me give the floor to Hugo. Dr. Gutierrez, please, if you could have your final remarks.
Yeah, I think it's very important that we continue to remind ourselves to start with the consumer, okay? And simplify all of those things in a way that the consumer can absorb it, right? So listen, every single company is gonna do what the consumer is asking for. So if the consumer believes sustainability is important, companies are going to invest on sustainability. I think that's a fact, okay? So educating the consumer, selling the ideas and why this is good for them, I think is something that we need to do more of. You can put a science project, or you can say they were a great cause, whatever that is. I don't think that's what this is about. This is about being transparent, sharing with the consumer why we're doing stuff. And when the consumer and the customers believe, food safety is important for me, that's why we have done so much on food safety. Sustainability, I care about sustainability. That's why a lot of companies are innovating in that area. So everything else has to go through that let's call it, lens of educating. The best work I've seen is when people work together. So look at this forum. So you got regulators, you got academia, you got science, you got industry. When you have those four things, and I'm sure there's more, aligned and being transparent and sharing and having one voice on why this is important, that's when success happens. If you have an industry just thinking about what's the best thing of the industry, or if you got regulators regulating just for what they believe is important, not taking into account industry, or when you got professors really having the right science but not in a way that people can absorb it, then you miss a huge opportunity. So I think I will give credit to food safety. I think we need to do more on the environmental piece and in the sustainability piece to do that more, but those are very good examples. We always have to find that spark, that would light that fire. And I'll be the first one to offer my help whenever there is a forum that say, let's get everybody together and let's share and let's put best practices and let's share with the industry and suppliers. Certainly be the first with Kerry to say, here we are, happy to help. By the way, every time I've done that, I have learned a lot. There's always companies and regulators and professors that have something new that I can handle, grab, and take it back as a good learning. So everybody wins when we do that. Again, thank you for the invite. Very, very happy to be here, and more happy as well to continue to contribute and be part of any of these forums as needed.
Thank you, Hugo. I'd like to thank all our panelists. And if I could summarize our almost 2 hours of discussion in 2 words, those would be science and communication. And I think we have a shared responsibility to bring this to the broader audience, right? And I think, as Hugo said, it's important for us to work together. We have Romano here from international organization, Christian from International Association, CropLife, Hugo from industry, myself from a national government. I think each one of us have a role to play in promoting science and better communicating, right? And it's very funny that when people get excited about the human race almost going to Mars, right? They always think about the rockets that will take us there. And they are not afraid of the rockets, but they never think about the food that we need to harvest there and how can we keep our astronauts alive. And they are scared of the food, but not of the rocket, right? So that's, I think, it's a key point for us to take, that we really need to better communicate on food safety, because I don't know, maybe the rocket industry is doing a better job than us, right? But people are not afraid of cars, people are not afraid of other new technologies, but they are afraid of food, right? So I think definitely we need to promote science and better communicate. And on that final note, I would like to please ask for Dr. Plinio Nastari to come back just to do the honors of closing this very fruitful and exciting event. Dr. Nastari, please.
Thank you very much, Secretary Bettarello. Excellent discussion, very high level debate. I can only thank yourself as moderator of this excellent event. And of course, our excellent panelists, Professor Marabelli, calling from Paris, from the OIE, Dr. Gutierrez, calling from Chicago, from Kerry. Thank you very much, Dr. Gutierrez, as well. And Dr. Lobauer, thank you very much, from CropLife in São Paulo. You conducted a very enlightening debate. All the content of this warm-up is going to be available through the YouTube for people to be able to follow up and revisit, and through the platforms of the Global Agribusiness Forum and Datagro and Universo Agro. So thank you very much. I congratulate all of you and thank the participants who followed us for attending. Thank you for the sponsors who supported the event in various ways. In particular, I would like to thank CropLife for the master sponsorship, Bradesco, Deagi, Yara, Kerry, and Cochupé. Thank you very much. On behalf of the organizers of the Global Agribusiness Forum, we really believe that this second warm-up sets a new standard of quality for discussion, and food safety is on top of the agenda of GAF for July next year, and we look forward to seeing you in person in São Paulo, July 25, 26, 2022, for our next edition of GAF. Thank you very much. Have a great day, afternoon, evening, and stay well. Happy Christmas, great holiday seasons to all, and our indebtedness for your dedication and your time today here with us. Thank you very much.
Tecnologia conecta pessoas e transforma vidas. CropLife Brazil.